Garcia opens My Father Cigars, completely cutting Rivera out. My Father Cigars is his own thing, doing whatever the hell he wants. But the problem with that is bad business. And so there is a lawsuit. On August 18th, 2010, Eduardo Antonio Fernandez Pujals, who owns 50% of the shares of El Rey de los Habanos Incorporated, sued the Garcia family, claiming breach of fiduciary duties, conspiracy to commit breach of fiduciary duties, aiding and abetting breaches of fiduciary duties, conversion, tortious interference, and ultravires. Well, forgive me if I mispronounced any or all of that, but that's a whole bunch of fucking law jargon, which basically boils down to, you stole business from me. Alright? And how it works is, when Pepin came over here and wanted to start a company, Eduardo Fernandez claims that he gave him not some, but all of the capital to start El Rey de los Habanos. Also, now this is really interesting, that factory we talked about when Pepin in 2007 or 2006 opened up Tacuba in Nicaragua, well, the factory that Pepin acquired was none other than Fernandez factory. Fernandez gave it to him, not really gave it to him, but let him have it, use it to make the cigars, to make money, 50% of which would go to Fernandez. The way it all breaks down is Fernandez owns 50% of all of that. Pepin Garcia, Jose Pepin Garcia, Jamie Garcia, his son, and Janny Garcia, his daughter, each own 16.7% respectively. When it all comes down to it, that's not a lot, is it? 16.7%. Sure, among the three of them, that makes up for the 50% that Eduardo doesn't own, but technically 16.7 belongs to each of them separately. Therefore, Jose Pepin Garcia is only getting 17% of all the capital that comes in from the cigars that he is basically famous for. Obviously, he, either has this plan because he wants to make more money, or he becomes disgruntled with the fact that he's only making 17%, but he decides to go his own way and open up his own business. The problem with that is that a lot of the ideas and trademarks and products even that he's using with My Father Cigars already belong to El Rey de los Habanos. And he's taking business, making cigars that are getting business that would have otherwise been made by El Rey de los Habanos' conflict of interests among partners. So it's a whole big legal mess. It's also a big, well, not a big problem, but it could be a big problem, as because of how popular they became, this lawsuit drags a lot of other companies into the fray. You have Tatuaje, Ashton, Holtz, San Cristobal, with San Cristobal and other cigars. You have Rocky Patel, who owns a stake in EO cigars, which are produced by Pepin. So you have a whole, but you have Nestor Miranda, the Nestor Miranda line, Miami cigars, but the Nestor Miranda collection is produced by Pepin. So you have a whole bunch of shit dragged into the mix. So that's all very interesting stuff. Now, this lawsuit started in 2010. There is a legal document online, as it's all available for the public, that was March 2011, and it seems that some sort of semi-decision was made. I can't really interpret it. I don't know legal stuff like that. It's so much legal terminology and jargon that I really can't tell what the hell is going on. It says something in the matter of that plaintiff defenses were both accepted and striked. I mean, partially granted, partially striked. I don't know if it was a decision, a final decision, if this thing is even over or not. I'm not really sure. I'll have to do more research on it. It doesn't matter. If it's over, it's over. If it's ongoing, it's ongoing. But the cool thing is knowing that it happened and seeing that the cigar industry, sometimes you have these quarrels and things can really get torn apart. My Father Cigars produced a whole fucking bunch of cigars that would have otherwise belonged, to El Rey de los Habanos or one of those other companies. I have here somewhere. Well, anyway, in here, let's look at some of the brands real quick that we're talking about. Don Pepin Garcia brands. This cigar is not very flavorful at this point. It's a bunch of leather and dry wood. Sweetness is all but dissipated. It's not very creamy either. I don't know. Pepin Garcia brands. Don Pepin Garcia Blue Label, Garcia Serie JJ, El Rey de los Habanos, discontinued. Vega Cubana, Vega Cubana, Don Pepin Garcia, My Father. And then within My Father, there's a whole bunch of, a whole slew. Where the hell is that paper? A whole slew of things. Here they are. We'll look at that real quick in 1 second. Client brands. Black Cat, these are crazy. Black Cat Cigar Company, now made elsewhere. Ray Miguel, Sam's GS Stash, The Cigar Merchant, the Trajan Reserva Serie T. No longer with Pepin Garcia though. Cigar King, Cuban Diplomat, Habana Leon. These are all Havana Soul, Hershey Garcia, Nacionales W, Sancti Spiritus, Holt Cigar Company, Little Havana Overruns, Tatuaje Cigars, Tatuaje and Cabaguan, Padilla Cigar, Padilla Miami 8 and 11, Padilla Signature 1932, Padilla 1948. Note, these were originally made for Padilla by Pepin, but in early 2008 the contract was not renewed. Padilla now makes them in his own factory. Top Shelf Cigar, Signature Select Green Label. Note, no more by Pepin Garcia. A lot of these brands, as you can see, have either discontinued or moved elsewhere. Those were all El Rey de los Habanos brands. Then Tabacalera Cubana, Tacuba, Pepin Garcia brands. Don Pepin Garcia Black Edition, Cuban Classic. Don Pepin Garcia Black Edition, Cuban Classic Maduro. Don Pepin Garcia Serie JJ Maduro, El Centurion. Client brands. 5 Vegas, Miami, 1 Vitola. The Shaggy Toro is made at the Miami factory. Ashton, Benchmade. What is it, a fucking knife now? I mean, Benchmade? Benchmade. There's got to be some sort of breach of fucking copyright infringement there. The cigar is called Benchmade. San Cristobal, La Aroma de Cuba. That's right, the entire La Aroma de Cuba line is made by Pepin Garcia. And the funny thing is, when I used to work at the shop, everybody used to call them Pepin cigars, Pepin cigars, Pepin cigars. Even when customers used to ask us who makes those, we would say Pepin. No one would ever say Ashton. They weren't even fucking like known to exist next to that brand. But La Aroma de Cuba is, big, the new blend, the Edition Especial, and the Mi Amor, and that's like Ashton's big one of trying to get into the Nicaraguan cigar market besides San Cristobal. Cigars International, CI Legends, Pepin Garcia Yellow Label. Remember when they had, after the blue label, then there was a green label, red label, black label. It was basically just different wrappers. Then this guy wants one for himself, so they made a yellow label. Cigar.com Incorporated has a Corojo label. EO brands, that's the steak Rocky Patel has in those. EO Premium 601 series, Cubao, which is basically Cuaba with the letters mixed up. Holt Cigar Company, Casa Royale, and it goes on and on and on. Tatuaje Bombazos, Tatuaje La Marvilla, Tatuaje Cohetes, Bad to the Bone, El Centurion, 601. We said a lot of these. So many fucking brands. But none of those are brands that are associated with the factory complex that was opened in 2008, which is My Father Cigars. Which, of course, you have My Father, which you have My Father Le Bijou, which you have My Father the special, this one right here. Here is a beautiful, talk about a cigar box. The limited edition My Father Jamie Garcia label. Jamie Garcia has a cigar blend that he made. The Don Pepin Garcia Original, Serie JJ, Cuban Classic. Oh, we mentioned all those. Those are My Father cigars. And you have a few more. And of course you have the Flor de las Antillas. Now, before we go, my mess of shit here, I'll just read a few little notes on the Flor de las Antillas. We opened with some things about it, and we will close with some things about it. There's always a little left. Always a little left. Very leathery right now. Very leathery. Lot of wood. No spice. No sweetness. This nub is practically tasteless. It really is. But I'm smoking it anyway because, well, let's be honest. Right now I'm smoking it because it has nicotine in it. And I'm really not feeling this cigar. They call it medium full. You know, somebody said here they put it in the 3/4 range. This cigar is medium bodied at best. At least to me. On the My Father website, they write about the Flor de las Antillas. Cuba is the largest of the greater Antilles Islands. Because of its beauty, it has earned the name Flor de las Antillas, the flower of Antilles. In its honor, the Garcia family has decided to put that name on this amazing and unique creation, combining a great cigar with a design that includes accents from the original art created in the early 1900s. We all saw the band, and we'll see it as we close. Beautiful band, beautiful artwork. Very, very classic Cuban. This is funny, seeing this episode, if you've watched our San Cristobal episode. Cuba is going into the 21st century with their cigar designing and trying to, you know, not look like so much, but fit in with or attract, you know, the American market, while cigars in the American market are reverting to classic Cuban designs. It's fucking hilarious. It really is. I was thinking to myself, you know, you lay down and you're going to sleep and you can't sleep and you're tossing and turning, and then you lay there on your back and you just start thinking all sorts of weird shit. Well, after doing the San Cristobal episode and thinking about this episode and thinking about this point right here, I started laughing when the thought to me came, when will the two get to the point where they cross over each other? I mean, will there be some sort of big explosion in the cigar world and something new is born and we're all amazed? Or will the whole thing just implode and collapse and crap all over itself? I don't know. Probably the latter, knowing the way things go in this world. But, I mean, really, you have San Cristobal releasing this jar for Cuba with, you know, all the bells and whistles, and I open the jar and they have this lucite, translucent, plastic thing that sits on top of the cigars, when originally in all other jars and forever it's always been a little cedar disc. I mean, that's really old school. Jars come from way back, you know, little cedar disc. So they turn it into this translucent plastic thing, which over the cigars, I'm not saying it doesn't look cool. It looks cool, but I don't like it because it's just so un-Cuban. You know, I would expect that from something if Tatuaje made it. Not even, you know? I would expect it if somebody like, I don't know, Rocky Patel made a jar. You know, they would have something like that in there. Tatuaje would even have a cedar sheet, you know? And then on the other side, you have cigars like Flor de las Antillas taking Cuban cigar art from the 1900s and putting it on their bands, and Tatuaje making boxes that basically are Cuban boxes. I mean, look at this box here. Here's a box. Here's an empty box of Reserva J21. All right? Bring it up to the camera for you real quick. This nub is really going. We'll just talk a little before we close. I think that thing's done. All right, so here we have a Tatuaje box. It's basically like a box made for Cuban cigars. Look at the seal. First you have the seal. The seal is basically a Cuban seal. Of course, it's different paper, but everything on it is exactly the same as Cuba. The only thing they change is the wording here. They say El Rey de los Habanos, where on a Cuban seal, of course, it would say República de Cuba. But everything else, you have the shield, you know, you have all the original dating, okay, right there, Julio. All right, you have, this is different. This is where on the old seals you'll have the red numbers, the old red serial numbers, and they put Taste of Cuba there. But those are the only differences. Same pictorial here, same wording here, same German down here, which there's a story behind that. I don't think I ever went over that with everybody, this date and why this is in German and all that. We'll get to that in a further Cuban episode. On the bottom of the box, Totalmente Mano, Cuban made in Miami. Of course, they put that, but Cuban made in Miami. Box date and factory code, ERH, El Rey de los Habanos, all right, which is funny when you only have one factory. I mean, well, there's the other one in Nicaragua. It used to be one factory. But that I just find that hilarious. Down here, you have Jose Pepin's signature. Okay, and then look at the clasp. Same as a Cuban clasp. Under. Right? Schmel, Germany. Same as Cuban boxes. Everything's the same. Reserva, which is just like the Edition Limitada boxes. Alright? This here would, of course, be the Habanos SA label. But do you notice anything about this? Look at that. That is fucking funny. It's the Habanos SA chevron kind of symbol. Oh my God. Everything about this box screams Cuba. I don't have it inside, but usually the cedar even has a corner cut. And just like Cuban cigars, the funny thing with tatuaje, when I used to work at a cigar shop, and this is the God's honest truth, some boxes, most boxes, would have the corner notch in the cedar, but some would be cut like that. Just like Cuba. And sometimes I laugh and think that Pete Johnson did that intentionally, because that's how it is with Cuban cigars. You know? It's really some funny shit. Since we're here, I said earlier, take a look at this San Cristobal box. Here is the San Cristobal box. Okay? Nothing like the Cuban San Cristobal box, but inside we have some similarities. The pictorial right there, with all the ships, is just like the San Cristobal box. Very different. You don't have really like the forts in the background and all that. I think they're really portraying, like, I don't even know if that you know, it's different, but it has its similarities. There is parts of the Cuban crest with the towers and the, right there we go, the towers and the key. So, the parrot's new. The parrot is new. I think that has something to do with Nicaragua, because that is the area that birds like this come from. I think. I gotta stop making assumptions, because every time I do that, I'm wrong. So, before we go, we'll look at one more box. Here's a box of Tatuaje Black Tubo torpedoes, and remember we're talking about the lawsuit, and Garcia running off and opening up My Father Cigars, and Eduardo Fernandez basically saying, hey, he went behind my back and opened up his own company, and he's stealing all my business and my trademarks. Well, this is evidence that goes, you know, that doesn't make it look very good for Garcia, because here's a box of Tatuaje with My Father Cigars on it. You know? So that really right there says a lot. And that whole thing, that lawsuit, explains why you'll see boxes of Tatuaje with El Rey de los Habanos, and then you'll see boxes of Tatuaje with My Father Cigars. So that is that. But I really wonder on the inside, like, well, why does this have My Father Cigars on it? Did he steal Tatuaje and bring it over there? No, it's kind of weird. The weird thing is, if you go online and you look, El Rey de los Habanos owns the My Father trademark. So, I don't know how that happened and what the fuck is going on. Or if any of this is even settled. But it makes for some interesting conversation. That is for sure. You know me, trying to get every little fucking bit I can out of this thing. But, we're going to talk real quick about our last third and then wrap it up and give it a final rating. And I will have some things to say. But I think this was a fairly interesting episode. We introduced one of the most prominent players in the industry today. We also learned that behind him stands somebody whose name is completely overshadowed and nobody really ever associates or mentions with Don Pepin Cigars, and that is Eduardo Fernandez. It's even funnier with what I'm about to say, and that is I enjoyed the Casa Fernandez Arsenio a lot more than I enjoyed this cigar. So that's that. Neither here nor there. The last thing we'll look at is a couple of more notes on La Flor de las Antillas. I got cut off by myself doing the whole box thing there. We left off with the art in the 1900s. The cigar, it is a 3/4 to full-bodied cigar, box pressed of a sun-grown wrapper harvested in Marias Farm, located in the region of Namaha in Estella, Nicaragua. Owned and operated by the Garcia family. The cigar is blended with several Cuban tobacco seeds, making it smooth and creamy. It starts with the signature My Father spice, that I got. Has a rich cocoa flavor, that I did not get. I got a lot of cocoa aroma and some hints of sweetness during the late second third, early last third, but that's it. It produces a beautiful white ash, giving it a great finish. I'm going to show you that beautiful white ash in a minute. I mean, you know, I don't understand. Am I smoking the right cigar here? The cigar has given the company its largest and dreamed recognition to be included in the list of top 25 cigars of the year 2012 as the number 1 with a score of 96. Here's the thing. This proves my point perfectly. Cigars change. Cigars change because crops change, because tobacco is an organic product. You know, you may go to the supermarket one day and buy apples that came from wherever and they're the best you've ever had. You go back and buy and they're the same apples and they're terrible. You know, this cigar, whatever it was in 2012 that gave it the number 1 spot, is not what it is now. And I know that for a few reasons. Not just because the descriptions and, oh, I find it different, the descriptions are off. Okay? But number 1, nobody is mentioning this citrusy sour note. And I'm getting that all over the fucking place. Number 2, the description of this beautiful white ash. Well, I have a pile of charred, gray, looks pretty Cuban actually, but it's definitely not a beautiful white ash. So perhaps the tobacco has changed. Maybe the blend has changed. Maybe they used the best tobacco they had to produce this cigar, got the number 1 spot, and then realized it was too expensive to keep doing so. I don't know. See, here's the thing about Pepin. I think he's great. I think a lot of the cigars blends he made are some of the best in the world, like Tatuaje, for instance. But I think he stretches himself a little too thin. I think he has too many cigars going on, even within his own operation, as far as My Father Cigars goes. You know, he creates a cigar, for instance, like the Don Pepin Blue Label. He creates a cigar, and then all of a sudden he has to do it with 8 different kinds of wrappers. And dude, create a cigar that's great, give us a cigar that's fantastic, and fucking keep it that way. Don't keep switching the wrapper and blue label, black label, green label, red label, yellow label, purple label, rainbow fucking label. Fuck all this bullshit. Stop doing that. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That means for every blend you make, you can make 8 variations on it by changing the wrapper. Of course you can do that. That's a bunch of bullshit, man. I don't like that. I don't like that because it says you're not fucking concentrating on the task at hand, which is creating a fantastic blend that doesn't need a fucking wrapper change. It doesn't need a new paint job. So that's one of my thoughts on the whole Don Pepin cigar thing. You know, I think in a lot of ways it's stretched a little too thin. And, you know, it's for instance like Padron. Padron doesn't come out with... Padron is so simple in some ways. In a lot of ways, there's no difference from one cigar to the next as far as artwork and labels and bands, and none of that changes. Just the blend and the time the tobacco is aged. And you come out with these magnificent cigars that stay that way. That stay that way. The 45 Maduro was #1 cigar of the year a while back. I think it was 2009. That is a magnificent cigar. The 45 Maduro was an amazing cigar. And the point is that it still is an amazing cigar. And it probably will be for the next 10 years or more. Probably until Padron no longer exists. But you won't see Padron saying, here is my, 45 Maduro but with a Corojo wrapper, or here's my 45 Family Reserve with a Cameroon wrapper. Why? The blend is already, don't fuck with it. And I don't know what happened to this cigar, but what I just smoked right now was definitely not a #1 cigar of the year. Now, the problem is that I didn't smoke it in 2012. I smoked it now in 2014. And I smoked it, so I'm not screaming and ranting and saying Cigar Aficionado is full of shit. I don't need emails from anybody over there, Marvin Shanken or Greg Matola, or I really just don't need it. I'm not bashing them. The cigar they smoked at that point may have been magnificent. And if I had smoked it a day after they released that article, it might have been phenomenal. But 2 years later, I have to tell you the truth. The cigar was really not that good. It lacked flavor. It kept going out, It really had very little strength, Definitely nowhere near full-bodied spectrum. It had zero pre-draw flavor. It was, except a very sour note. There was, very little salt for Nicaraguan tobacco, which I like. Just very subtle flavors. Basically no complexity. There's nothing going on to call it complex. And as far as a beautiful white ash, I don't know. I think that's evidence right here that this blend is not what it used to be. Cigar Aficionado wrote in 2012, the standout of the Four Sides brand is the Toro, which has a gentle rounded box press and a beautiful and evenly colored wrapper. The smokes are delicious from the first puff, with notes of nutmeg, white pepper, and just enough strength without being overpowering. They're hard to put down. They are classics, 96-point smokes on our 100-point scale. Just enough strength without being overpowering. They write in a way that it's hard to disagree with what they're saying, even if the cigar is, you know what I mean? This cigar is hard to put down, because if you put it down, it'll go out. Okay? That makes it hard to put down. The white pepper, whatever, white pepper, black pepper, there's peppery spice at the beginning of the cigar, and that disappears after the first 10 puffs, never to be heard from again. There's very little salt, if any, and as far as those chocolatey sweet notes and hints of nutmeg and things like that go, mostly through the nose. To be honest, on the palate itself, the cigar is rather bland, except for a long-lasting citrusy note that becomes a little more bassy in the second third and almost lemony, and then again disappears, leaving the last third just totally gone. I mean, the last third totally gone. Nothing. First few puffs of the last third, a little bit of sweetness, and then wash, gone, nothing. So I gotta say that in 2014, walking down the street, deciding, you know what, let me pop in a cigar store, little bodega, let me grab a cigar. This place is great. They've been, for as long as I've been here, 30 years, they have a beautiful, cabinet, and they're always well maintained. It's a good place to buy cigars from. I know places that don't keep their cigars well. I trust these guys. Go in there, got a cigar, nice, humid, perfect. Brought it home, said, this is going to be great. #1 cigar of the year. Get a chance to try this. Well, so much for that, is all I have to say. And don't worry, Pepin, if you're watching, which you're probably not, I love Tatuaje, and I love a lot of your other cigars, but this one just did not strike me as being anything special at all in 2014. Maybe it was in 2012, but at this point, I would not personally recommend the Flor de las Antillas. Okay, and here we are wrapping it up with our Flor de las Antillas, My Father Cigars. #1 cigar of the year, 2012. Not so much 2014. Appearance, 1. Beautiful cigar, gave it a perfect score. Dark, oily wrapper, consistent coloring, just the way I like to see them. Slight box press, rounded corners, nice thick looking tobacco in the foot. You could tell it's Entubado style rolling. Beautifully dressed, satin foot, gorgeous band. Awesome appearance. Burn, 0.5. In the beginning it was burning great, and then constantly throughout the cigar it went out again and again and again and again and again. The further down I got, the more it went out. Maybe it's because of the double binder combined with the thick filler. I don't know, but it kept going out. Construction, 0.75. Even though I gave the draw a 1, perfect score, amazing draw, construction got a 0.75 because the burn was, half the time good, half the time bad. It's hard to say if it was the construction. It might be the double binder, but then again, the double binder is part of the construction. So, there you go. Pre-draw flavor, 0.5. Nothing special. A little bit of spice as the tobacco got moist. Basically started with a sour note. Some very subtle hints of cocoa and stuff like that. Very subtle. 0 salt. I mean, just about none. So the pre-draw was not interesting. Very uninteresting pre-draw. Overall flavor, a 1. I almost wanted to give it less. The last third was just really bad. 0 flavor throughout the last third. Really washed out. Really bland. Save a few sweet notes at the beginning of it. Most of the cigar was a buildup of this sour, citrusy note that got deeper and deeper and then just disappeared. Pepper for the first couple of puffs, and that was gone too. Basically, what happened is the more you smoke the cigar, the less flavor there was. And that, everyone knows, I don't like. Cigars are all about flavor. Cigars, without flavor, a cigar is nothing. A cigar can look like complete shit. I don't care. If it has an amazing flavor, then it's great. Aroma, a 1. Aroma was unbelievable. Sweet, chocolatey, cocoa-y, very, very nice. Balance, 0.75. Knocked a little bit off because, you know what? Strength-wise, balance was fine. It was medium-bodied all the way through. It didn't really go anywhere. It didn't pick up. It didn't go down. But flavor-wise, the balance was terrible. There should have been a buildup of flavor or complexity or something, and none of that happened. Complexity, therefore, 0.25. Very, very uncomplex cigar. Really no complexity at all. Overall score, 6.75. A cigar with an utterly disappointing lack of flavor and complexity, saved by a wonderful aroma and near perfect draw. And so that about wraps it up. Hey, last thing I want to point out, look at that ashtray. Does that look like a nice white ash to you? Come on, man. And I swear to God, I did not fuck with it. I mean, I have a few good clumps there, but that is really all because the cigar kept going out again and again and again. Jeez, man, whatever. No white ash there. Anyway, I enjoyed this episode, doing this episode, much more than I enjoyed the cigar, so that makes it okay. I hope you feel the same way. No matter what you got out of it, at least you learned about Don Pepin and his involvement in the current cigar industry, as he is one of the most influential cigar players in the market today. So best keep your eyes on him, and I'm sure we will be encountering many more cigars blended by him as the show goes on. That being said, don't forget to tune in often, check for new episodes, and no matter what, keep on smoking. Say goodnight, Max.